All right. Welcome to Care Simplified channel. Today we are going to look at paper 2, topic outline for grade 11. Now, don't forget, if you have any question regarding paper 2, don't forget to type them under the comment section and every question will be addressed. Right. We will start with the general concept. You know, the question paper is always having the multiple choice and the match column, then followed by the true or false. Now, you know that when it is false, you need to substitute the underlined word with a term that will make it to be true. Right. Then, what do you have to expect regarding grade 11, paper 2? Now, grade 11, paper 2 has been divided into the following sections. First of all, we have the system technologies, in which you get questions under question 4, question 9, and then question 10, as well as the multiple choice questions. Now, remember the grade 11, the total mark according to the ATP is supposed to be 120 for 2.5 hours. That is for the theory. Now, so we start with the first one, that is the system technologies. So from term 1, what have we learned under system technologies as a grade 11 learner? These are the topics that were covered under system technologies. Now, system technologies comprises the ICT, the hardware, the software, the data and information, and then some key concept as well. Right. Now, we start with the first one. You need to know the uses of ICT. ICT, which stands for the information processing cycle. Information and communication technology. Sorry for that. I always like the information processing cycle, which is IPC, which we will talk about it as well. So this one stands for information and communication technology. So we have information technology as well as the communication technology, two technologies put together. Now, you must know the uses of it in various sectors. For instance, it could be in banking sector. What do we use ICT for? In education sectors. For instance, in education sector for printing learners' marks, capturing learners' marks as well, database that stores the learners' information and educators, SASMs. If you go to the health sector, to diagnose diseases, taking patients' records and others. So in other words, ICT is very, very important in all aspects, every sector. In agricultural sector, RFID tags are used to locate or trace animals in farming. So basically, every sector, ICT is very, very important. So you need to know the uses or the importance of ICT in all these sectors. Right. Again, you must also know the differences between the data information, data being the raw facts and figures that is yet to be processed without meaning. Example are numbers, symbols, items, observations like 100. If you say 25.5 or blue or yellow, all these are just data. But the moment that data has been processed and then it becomes meaningful, then we call it information. Example is 100 degrees Celsius. That's the boiling point of water at sea level. So that one has a meaning. So it becomes what we call the information. Another example of information is the average CAT mark for grade 11 learners is 65%. So meaning that has meaningful, you can interpret it. Right. Now, So these are some of the examples. Then reasons why we use computers or the computing device or ICT, like I just talked about it, saving time and labor, saving communication costs, and then time and then global communication. Now we move straight to the topic called hardware. When it comes to hardware, you need to know different types of hardware. That is the physical component of the computer system. The physical component of the computer system that can be touched and seen. So those physical components of the computer system that you can touch and also see or maybe feel it, we call it the hardware. Now, hardware, we have what we call the information processing cycle, the different hardware for every stage. Now, when I talk about the information processing cycle, which is IPC, that is the stages that the computer undergoes to convert data into information. And basically, we have about 5 stages. We have the input stage. That is where data is captured into the computer using devices like keyboard. Remember, keyboard is the most common input device. Mouse is also the most common pointing device. So take note, the most common input device is keyboard, but the most common pointing device is mouse. Then we also have processing stages, that's manipulating and interpreting data or performing calculations. Now, several devices are used to process data into information. The first example is CPU, Central Processing Unit, or RAM, Random Access Memory, ROM. All these devices are part of the processing devices. Then we also have the storage device that is saving data for future use permanently. Example is the hard drive, solid state drive, which is the newest type of internal storage of the computer. New type of devices are using SSDs. We have flash drives and others, CD, DVD, Blu-ray, and others. Right, then the output is displaying the results of the processed data. And the devices are monitor, printers, speakers, projectors, and others. So you need to know this. And then the last stage is communication stage. That's the transfer of data or information between devices through devices like modem, router, and others, which we will discuss later on. Then you need to also know the term convergence. When you say convergence, that is the multiple technologies combined into one device. Example, smartphone. From smartphone, you will see multiple technologies like GPS. From smartphone, you can also see technologies like webcam or the camera inside. So when you have multiple technologies combined in one device to make it convenient for us so that we can use to do so many tasks, we call it convergence. Right, you must know the definition, advantages, example of convergent devices like smartphone, laptop, tablets, and their disadvantages. Now we move straight to the types of computing devices and features. We did this also in term 1, grade 11. We did this in term 1. Different devices, categorizing them based on the size or based on how powerful they are. Example is phablets, which is the smaller type of tablet in between smartphone and then tablet, mostly 7 inches or 8 inches, 7 to 8 inches. That's the screen. And then the tablets are the bigger size, bigger than the phablet, which is mostly more than 8 inches, like 10 inches, and others. We call it tablet. Then we also have smartphone, which is the smallest one. So basically, if you were to rank them, smartphone being the smallest, and then after smartphone and then the tablet. So here, if we were to arrange them in ascending order, first one is smartphone, followed by phablet, tablet. We also have Ultrabook, which has replaced what we call netbook. Netbook and Ultrabooks do not have CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. They are lighter, smaller type, but then the Ultrabooks is mostly, sometimes you guys call it the MacBooks and others. Those are Ultrabooks, and they can also be referred to as some of them two-in-one devices that can be used as tablet mode or laptop mode, right? And then the netbook, these days netbook is no longer available, or you don't find them in the market. They were not having touch screen, so the two-in-one has replaced the netbook. And then we also have notebook. The notebook does not, most of them does not have touch screen. It's a little bit heavier and bigger than Ultrabooks. And then we also have laptop. And then we have desktop, then the server, mainframe, and then the most powerful computer, or the biggest computer, called supercomputers. Right. So if you were to rank them in ascending order from the smallest to the biggest, or in terms of how powerful they are, this is how you arrange them. Right. And then we also have multi-touch screen. When we talk about multi-touch screen, being able to register multiple points of contact at the same time, mostly for zooming or pinching. Like example, on your touch screen of your smartphone, when you are able to touch more than one point of contact at the same time, we call it multi-touch screen. And we can use it to zoom, or to zoom in and zoom out, and to double tap and others. Right. So you must know the multi-touch, the uses, which is in smartphones and tablets and some laptops. And then also the advantages, they support what? Different gestures like pinch to zoom, and then also intuitive and user friendly. So if we ask you to give advantages of a touch screen or multi-touch screen, these are the advantages. Right. Then disadvantages of touch screen, it can be less accurate than a mouse. And then the fingerprints on the screen, if your fingerprint is dirty, or maybe if sometimes unresponsive to dirt on fingers. Right. So if you have dirt or maybe water, it will be difficult for you to respond on the screen. Right. Now, assistive technologies. Assistive technologies for physically challenged users. These are the tools and softwares that help people with disabilities in the way that they use their computers. Now, there are several softwares that are available, and then several hardwares or tools. So you can say tools or hardware that can help people with disabilities. For example, we have Braille keyboard, large key keyboard, and others that will help people with different disabilities. So we must know them. So some of the softwares are screen readers, voice input, or voice recognition softwares, braille keyboards, eye tracking devices, and others. So you must know some of the softwares available, and then the devices also available for different people with different challenges. Right. Now, the purpose of this assistive technology is to promote accessibility and digital inclusion. In other words, to ensure that no one is excluded in terms of the use of technologies. Now, 3D printers, three-dimensional printers, that is a printer that creates a three-dimensional object in different layers. So they create by putting them in different layers, and mostly used in engineering, medicine, architecture, education. Like for education, the toys for the crèche and those preschools, they are being created using the 3D printer. Now, you must also know the disadvantages, like the toxic waste. Emission of this toxic waste can be harmful to the environment. The chemicals that are used to produce these things can be harmful to the environment as well. Now, HDMI. So let me add that one. Disadvantages. Emissions of toxic chemicals or waste. To the environment. Right. Now, we move straight to the HDMI and different wearable technologies. Now, when you talk about HDMI, high definition multimedia interface, and that is a type of cable or a port that allows one to transmit high quality video and audio between devices. In other words, they support both video and then audio at the same time. VGA only support the video, that's the visual output. So we also have VGA, which is the old cable, only support visual output. So it is HDMI that support both visual and then audio output, and it also gives a high quality output. Right. Then the wearable technologies. These are the devices that are worn on our bodies, like smartwatches, fitness trackers, smart glasses, and others. There are so many of them available. Now, they track our health, provide notifications, and connect to smartphones. So these are the wearable devices. You must know the advantages as well. Now, the accessibility options. In other words, softwares available in operating systems. What are some of the software that are available in operating system that can be used to assist people with disabilities? For example, the magnifier on-screen keyboard. When you use the operating system, if I search for on-screen keyboard, it gives us on-screen keyboard. It's also able to assist people with different challenges or disabilities, right? So that's the on-screen keyboard. We also have magnifier. So some of these things are in the operating system that you don't need to install it. They are also there. That's the magnifier for you. So when you have it, it will make your screen to be enlarged, as you can see here. So you take it to 100%, that's the normal one. Right, to assist those who have challenges in terms of the way they see the screen as well, right? And then we have high contrast mode also for those with the partially sighted people, those who struggle to see items. So you have to change the contrast ratio or the contrast to a more dark mode, voice controls and others. So you must know some of these examples. Now, before I proceed to the next topic, I would like to check if there's any question in the group or the comment section. Right. Somebody said, can you please mention the things in the exam that won't be in the scope and will be? No, there's nothing like that. You need to study all the concepts and be ready for the examination. It's better you get prepared so that during the exams, you will not be able to struggle to answer these questions. You must have the confidence. So that's why if you have any question, don't forget to ask. Would we be able to go over mistakes that students commonly make, like the computer? Like we will do that also. Some of the common mistakes that you make in the theory section. Is this a scope or the note? Both. You need to study all these and then the scope. That's why we also have the question and answer. The computer advert, yes, you need to do it. We will talk about that as well. Yes, whatever that I'm discussing, you must watch out for them. Please, you need to be ready for them as well. Right. These are all the concepts or the topic that we have covered during term 1 and term 2. Now, hardware theft protection and then the power settings as well as UPS. Now, when we talk about the hardware theft, that's stealing of different hardwares like smartphone, tablets, laptops, and others, keyboard, mouse. So stealing of these hardwares are expensive, or it's always having economic negative effect on us. Now, how do we ensure that these gadgets are not stolen? In other words, how do we ensure that they are protected? The first one, you can have cable locks, install alarm system in the computer lab, physical security measures like inserting biometric access control, CCTV cameras, and then also having PIN code device so that when you type the PIN code, then the lab will be open or the door will be open. Also, you can bolt the desktop and then also chain. So all these are measures that we use to protect different hardware from being stolen. So you must take note of that. Now, like I always preach to learners, whatever you study, especially in examination, focus on 2 or maximum 3. So you must know every topic at least 2. You know the definition, the advantages and disadvantages. You target 2 so that it will be easier for you when you are answering them. Right. Power settings. How do we change the power settings to ensure that you save energy? Like control sleep mode, screen time out, so that you can save energy. So they can ask you these type of questions, how to ensure that the power settings promote green computing. Now, UPS, which stands for uninterruptible power supply. That one provides a backup power during outages to prevent data loss. So they are always connected to the computers so that especially when you are doing the examination and then the power goes off. Now, in order for you not to lose your work, whatever that you are doing, they should be connected to a continuous power supply, which is what we call the uninterruptible power supply, so that when the power goes off, your computer will not be switched off. And then don't forget, we also have what we call PSU, which is power supply unit. So they are different between UPS and then PSU. So this one gives the normal power or the continuous power. Continuous power to the computers. In other words, like your charging unit, where you plug in your charger, or if it's a desktop, where you plug in your power cable, there's a device that's connected to the motherboard, which is called the power supply unit. And that one gives the power to the computer system. Right. Now, health risk, what we call ergonomics. Now, the health risk, like the eye strain, RSI, back pain from poor posture, and others. So you need to know this. Ergonomics, as we're designing the work environment for comfort, correct chair height, screen angle, and others, adjustable keyboard, and all these. So designing the work environment for comfort, we call it ergonomics. It's a term whereby we ensure the comfortability and safety of our environment. Now, the value of CAT, the career path, you did it in grade 10, grade 11, term 1. What are the values of CAT? Computer applications technologies. That's developing digital literacy in order for you to solve different problems and getting ICT skills. Now, what are some of the career paths that when you study CAT, you can do? There are several career paths that when you study CAT, you can become. One, IT support or IT data analyst. This is a growing career that I will encourage most of you to also take into this path. Very, very good. If you're a data science or data analyst, you easily get job. Office administrators, digital marketing, software testing, computer scientists, software engineering, and so on. So there are so many career paths that you can also form part. Now, we move straight to primary and secondary storage, or sometimes we call it memory. So sometimes they can say primary and secondary memory. Now they are the same. The primary memory example is RAM. They save things or they store things temporary. It's fast and then volatile. But then when you give the question, don't say it's fast. Faster to access or retrieve files or data. Don't just say it's faster. Temporary, volatile, that means they lose their content when the power goes off. Again, it's expensive per gigabyte. Now, for the secondary storage, we have hard drive, SSD. We also have flash drive. Now, these ones are permanent, slower than RAM, stored files and programs, and cheaper per gigabyte. In other words, the cost of purchasing these secondary storage are cheaper as compared to the cost of purchasing the primary memory like RAM. So you must know these examples and their definitions. Now, again, we move straight to the online storage, SSD versus HDD, and then the memory card. You need to know them. Online storage, that is the cloud-based. In other words, saving files online. Cloud-based saving of files, that's the simple definition. An example, Google Drive, OneDrive, SkyDrive, and others, Dropbox. Now, their advantage is accessible anywhere. You can access it anywhere and then anytime. And also anytime. You can also get or increase the size, like this one here. This is what Google Drive. The initial size that they gave me was 15 gig. To how to increase it to 100 gig, so you can scale it, or in other words, you can increase the size as well. Right. Now, SSD, solid state drive, the newer type of internal storage, or the storage, which is replacing the hard drive. And then the solid state drive is electronic. It's electronic type, just like flash drive. In other words, they have a board inside it, so that makes it to be faster to receive or retrieve data. So faster access of data. And then there's no moving part. It's more durable than HDD as well. In other words, when it falls down, you'll be able to retrieve your content also there. So these are some of the things to compare. But then the disadvantage is that it's more expensive as compared to the hard drive. Then the memory card. There are different types of memory cards based on the size. And then there are portable storage used in phones, cameras, and others. That's limited capacity, but is more convenient. You need to know this. Then we move straight to the processing, basic system unit component. In other words, like CPU, motherboard, RAM, the power supply unit, expansion cards, and others. I already talked about the power supply unit, so I don't need to mention them again here. Then the expansion cards, all these components inside the motherboard. Now the CPU becoming the main brain of the computer. In other words, that's the most essential component inside the computer, which performs all the calculations and tasks, different tasks. So whenever you have been given a scenario to analyze, the most common component is the CPU, followed by components like the RAM, and then the hard drive and others. Right. The startup process. What goes into computer whenever you switch on the computer? In other words, when you switch on the computer, what goes into that? So the process of switching on the computer, we call booting. And the process of restarting the computer is called rebooting. Now, the first stage is POST, power on self-test. So whenever you switch on the computer, it undergoes POST, which checks all the hardware, whether they are working. If any hardware like the hard drive is not working, it's not going to boot or start up for you. So the first stage of this booting up process is the post. The post is whereby they check all the hardware. And then we have the BIOS, basic input output system, which loads before the operating system to initialize the system settings. Then the operating system will be loaded from the storage and then to the RAM. So that's how the startup process works. Now, making buying decisions after this. What kind of things you must consider whenever you are purchasing or you are buying any item or any component? Right. Keyboard. Whenever you are buying keyboard, which is the most common input device, you need to consider the keyboard ergonomic. In other words, it must have wrist rest support, softer key press, and then split or angled keyboard. Then the mouse also, you must check the ergonomic, whether the shape and grip to reduce strains, position, and also angle, allowing natural wrist position. So you must consider that as well. Again, You must consider whether it's wireless or cable. Now, how do we compare these two? When we talk about the wireless, advantages are that freedom of movement. So this is advantages of wireless. And don't forget, it could be wireless keyboard, wireless mouse, or it could be wireless speaker or headset. All these are the same, the advantages. Connection interferences is disadvantage of a wireless, requires battery and charges is also disadvantage. Expensive to buy is disadvantage. Easily stolen is disadvantage. So here, the free movement or portable, those are the advantages. Now, cabled one, there's no free movement, so this one becomes the disadvantage for a cabled. And then the stable uninterrupted is advantage. Takes power from it is also advantage. Cheaper to buy, not easily stolen is also advantage. So you can be given a question to compare these two. So take note of that. Now, digital camera and then webcam. Factors to consider when buying these. The first thing is resolution. Now, when you are buying digital camera, the resolution, you need to check the megapixels. The higher the resolution, the clearer or the better the image. You must also consider the sensor size. Consider the ISO rating. The ISO rating range lets you shoot in a low light environment without too much noise. Or in other words, how sensitive the camera is to light. That is what we call the ISO rating. Then we have the lens options also. We have the connectivity and then cost also. So you need to consider this. For the lens option, we consider DSLR versus the other cameras also. This is the DSLR is mostly for the professionals. They are mostly for professionals. So you must take note of that. Right. Now, so when they ask you, the examiners like asking these questions, factors to consider when buying a camera. And then they can restrict you by saying beside resolution. So please take note of maybe ISO rating, maybe connectivity and other factors, but not resolution, because the resolution, sometimes they restrict you on that. Now, scanner, which is the device for capturing image into the computer. It's an input device. Now, the scanner factors to consider is also resolution, which is dot per inch. And then the higher DPI, the better resulting image. The speed of the scanner, which is PPM. The connectivity, some scanners can be connected wirelessly. Color depth. OCR, which is the software to convert scan images into editable text. So when you scan, let's say your book or your document, and you want to make changes or edit, you need a software called OCR, which stands for optical character recognition. That will allow you to convert the scan image into an editable text. Then the size and then the cost. There are some printers you must consider. Maybe you are using it in your small office and then you go and buy a big printer. It's going to affect it also. Now, the monitor, which is the display device. Factors to consider regarding monitors are also resolution, which is in pixels. the number of pixels horizontally and vertically, mostly in this format, right? Then we also have the screen size, which is measured in inches diagonally, connectivity, whether USB, HDMI, VGA, or wireless, color depth, which is measured in bits, refresh rate, measured in hertz, and then we also have or millisecond. We have the size and then the cost. Now, printers, factors to consider when buying printers also. First of all, you must consider the printer type, whether inkjet, laser, or MFP, all in one, or sometimes you call it multi-purpose or multi-function printer, which combines printing, scanning, copying, and sometimes fixing or stapling at the same time. Now, the speed, ppm, the resolution, dpi, the cost or the budget. In other words, the cost per page and then the cost to buy, the cost to purchase it, as well as the cost per page when you are printing. Monthly duty cycle, which is the number of pages a printer can handle per month before it undergoes maintenance. You must know this definition. They like asking this type of questions as well. Then the paper size, different paper sizes. It can print like A4, A3, and A5. Connectivity as well, and then the touch screen features. There are some printers, modern printers, they have touch screen features whereby you can use to select, to also use printer queue, delete something in the queue, and others. Right, then we move straight to voice or speech recognition software. Now, these are assistive software like we discussed earlier on. The speech recognition identifies spoken word. Voice recognition identifies the speaker's voice, mainly for biometrics and personalization. So you need to know their advantages and disadvantages, which I've listed here as well. Right, so these are the advantages. But then if you are using voice and then you have flu, you struggle to unlock your device when you use it as a biometric. And then the essential component, or sometimes we call the basic devices for overall performance of the computer. When they ask basic, because I saw that the grade 12, some of them made a mistake as well. When the question was asked about the basic component, they must list 3 basic components. They still wrote mouse, keyboard, and no, they are not basic. The most essential internal components are CPU, RAM, storage. GPU is also essential, but then depending on the type of user. Here, I just summarize the SSD and HDD, which you have to go through them. Examiners like asking questions about finding the differences between the storage, the SSD, and HDD. You must know at least 2, more expensive per gigabyte and less expensive, faster read and write speed, and slow read and write speed, more durable or less durable. You must know this. Backup, making copies of data. Why do we make backup? To recover in case of loss, corruption of files, or system failure. They can ask you this question: what is the purpose of making backup? And what is the difference between backup and archive? Archive is a long-term storage of data for historical or legal requirement. So archive is not a short-term like backup. Backup is a short-term because something might happen to your data and then you easily go for it. But then for archives, it's always a long-term. Let's say you have your old pictures and then you scan them, you put them somewhere on a CD. That one is an archive for historical purposes. Then the cloud storage versus cloud computing. Cloud storage simply means saving files online. Cloud computing, storing files and using softwares online. Then the risk of using these input devices, like CTS, caused by repetitive risk and hand movement. And then RSI, repetitive movement or sitting for long. And how do we ensure that taking breaks using ergonomic keyboards and others? You must know that. Keylogger, a malware that records keystrokes, you must know that as well. Now, how do we fix different ordinary problems? It's also part of the system technologies. Sticky mouse, resolution is having a problem, printing problems when there's paper jam and others, you must know them. And then how do you ensure green computing, saving or printing 2 pages per sheet, reducing the font sizes and others. Disk errors, you must know it, how to close non-responsive things and then others. All these are some of the things that you must know as grade 12 or grade 11 learners. Right. Then we move straight to software, still under system technologies. You must know the definition of a software, which is a program used to perform certain tasks or that tells the computer what to do. And basically we have application and system software. Now, when you talk about application software, which performs a particular task like Microsoft Word and spreadsheet, then the system software, which controls and manages all the activities within the computer system. Then we have utility software that maintain the computer. Driver, which is a software that operating system communicate with different computers. So we have print driver. We also have a scanner driver and others, network driver. So there are so many types of drivers as well. And then you must know differentiating between web-based application and installed application. Software that are kept on the website and software that we get on our computers, the differences, right? Then we also move straight to this software license, site license, multiple users and others. So you must know this subscription license and then the role or the functions of operating system. This one you did it in grade 10. Remember, grade 11, your questions, some of the questions can even come from grade 10. So you must know this. That's why I've expanded the scope. You need to know all this so that you'll be prepared for the examination. So the operating system functions, at least you must know 2 or 3. The one that you can easily remember is the one that I've highlighted. They manage software, they manage hardware, they provide graphical user interface, which they can also control securities. That is the login. So you can pick at least 2 or 3. Metadata, which is additional information of a file. So when you have any file, the additional information that you can get there. Example is the author, the file size, the file path, the date modified, the date created, and others. Right. We talk about this factor that influence the performance of the computer. That's the processor speed, the RAM size, the number of applications running, caching, disk space, and malware infections. Then add-ons, sometimes we call it extensions, which is additional feature that enhance the functionality of a software or a website. So we have ad blocker, pop-up blocker, and others. These are some of the add-ons. Now, basically, this is what you need to know regarding the system technologies. They are a lot because they cover a lot of marks from question 4, which is 25 marks, to question 9 and question 10 as well. Right. We move to network. What's expected from you regarding grade 11? Network is 15 marks. You must know the LAN and the wireless LAN components of a network. LAN, local area network. Network in a small area like school or office, which is fast and private, use cables or Wi-Fi. Now, the LAN that uses Wi-Fi, we call it wireless LAN. They make use of wireless instead of the cable. More flexible and can be less secured as well. And then also, key components of a network. Whenever you are setting up a network, what are the key components? Like a router, which is a device that connects networks together. So if you have one network combining with another network, you need a router. Then a switch is a device that connects multiple devices in a LAN or in a network. And then we have network interface card, which is NIC, or sometimes we call it network interface controller. It's a device that connects a certain device to the network. So that's where mostly we plug in the network cable, or some of them can be wireless as well. And then we have access point. Sometimes we call it the web, which is wireless access point. They provide Wi-Fi in a wireless LAN. So it's a device that provides Wi-Fi in a wireless LAN. So you must know this as well. Then comparing between wired and wireless connections. Like I said, the wired use cables, Ethernet cable. Wireless use radio signals like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Then wired is faster and more stable. And then the wireless is more flexible and portable. For the wired, more secure, but then the wireless easier to set up. And then the signal can be weakened when you are far away or there's a wall in between. Right, so you must take note of that. Then intranet, definition and uses. When you talk about intranet is a private network within an organization. For example, if you take MTN, their private network only, that's only for the employees. So that is what we call the intranet. Now, it's internal communication. They can also use it for document sharing or the news within the company, and then the employee tools also. Not accessible to the public. It requires login credentials. So take note about the intranet. It is not accessible to the public. And before you can get access to it, you need to log in with your credentials. Then the extranet. Extranet is a private network just like the intranet, but then they allow limited access to outsiders, like their suppliers and then their partners. For example, a school can have extranet whereby they allow limited access to parents, because parents are also partners of the school, so that they can have access to that particular portion. Right. Then the supplier can access the company's inventory system as well. And it's more secure than the public internet. Remember, internet is a public, which is the largest network. Internet, which stands for interconnected. Interconnected network, which is a public network comprising multiple, or you can say millions of networks globally. Right. So many networks that are put together, and it is a public network, unlike the intranet and extranet. So take note of that. Then the usability of website and web pages. When we talk about usability, which refers to how easy a website is to use and navigate. Good websites always have a clear layout, easy navigation, fast loading time, accessible design for disabled users, and responsive design which work on all devices. So these are some of the factors you must consider for a good website. Then how do we evaluate website? When you get any information, how do you evaluate it? You must evaluate by using the author, who wrote it, are they qualified, the date, is the information current, and you will need this for your pet as well. You must do this for your pet. The source, is the source trustworthy? Objectivity, is there bias or advertising? And then accuracy, can the information be verified elsewhere or in another website? So these are the factors that we use, or the criteria used to evaluate a good web page. Then we move straight to the IoT, which is Internet of Things, whereby different objects are connected to the internet to collect or share data. Example is smart fridge, fitness trackers, home security system, smart thermostat, and others. Smart TV also is another one. So whereby all these devices are increasingly connected to the internet. We call them the IoT. Then the benefit of IoT include automation, remote control, and real-time data also. Then the concerns of the IoT. In other words, the disadvantage is the privacy and security concerns and data overload or information overload. You must also know different types of network like WAN, LAN, GAN, PAN, HAN, and the rest. Advantages of a network: communication, sharing of files and hardware as well, and then centralized storage, like on the server. So you can be given a question to give advantages of any type of network, but then there's disadvantages like security concerns or expensive to set up. Then different internet services like voice over internet protocols like WhatsApp calling, Zoom, and whatever that I'm even using now to display or communicate to you through the voice. Instant message like WhatsApp. And then other applications like Facebook Messenger. Not Facebook. Then the internet connections, you need to know them, throttling and others, but then you can, that one is not important. What is more important for you regarding this June ends here. It ends here. That is up to the types of network and the IoTs. Right? Then social implication, the negative side of using technology. What are some of the negative side? The basic network security and privacy issues, like protecting the network from hacking, malware, and data theft. Privacy concerns, personal data can be intercepted or misused if you don't protect them. How do we solve these network and privacy issues? By having a firewall. A firewall is a software or hardware that blocks and authorize access to a network. So it blocks and authorized access to a particular network. Now you need to also put a strong password. You must always put antivirus software and also encryptions, or also update your antivirus software so that it will be able to detect these harmful cyber attacks. And then the health and ergonomics, like we discussed earlier. And then ethical concerns and network, like spreading of fake news, cyberbullying, hacking and pirating software. You must know this. Then the responsible use of ICT, that is AUP, acceptable use of a user policy, respecting other people's privacy and data. Don't use ICT for illegal or harmful activities. think before you post online. Online actions have real world consequences. Now you can see these days, even most companies check your digital footprint before they give you a particular job. So you must take note of that. Cyber safety awareness. Be cautious online. Don't share personal information. Use secure password. Avoid suspicious link or email like phishing. Stay informed about the common threats and scams. Now, see now these days, people are even using WhatsApp to scam other people. You must be careful about that. Then, these are the things that I talk about, what you must use to protect your work. Then the ethical use of network, that's the netiquette. Use network for legal and positive purposes. Avoid plagiarism, that is copying somebody's work that is not your own. Piracy, cyberbullying, cyber stalking, and others. Now, privacy and unauthorized access as well. You must know it. Privacy and unauthorized access. The privacy to control your personal information and unauthorized access of your data, illegal and unethical use. You must also know BYOD. That's the concept whereby employees or learners, a concept where employees or learners are allowed to bring their devices to connect to the school's network or the employer's network. So here, like some schools even use BYOD, whereby learners bring their tablets and then all the work are kept on the tablet. So that's what called the BYOD. Now, advantages, cost saving. Cost saving here is the cost saving to the school. Instead of the school to purchase for you guys, the learners, then to be cheaper because parents must bring them. Flexible, convenient. Also, you can work, you know your device, so you know how to use them, especially those doing CAD. If you know how you use your device, you have all the offices, and then you practice with them. It's convenient. You can work, do a lot of practicals, submit your pet on time because you have your own devices. But then disadvantages are that security risk, data management issues, and unequal access. Not everybody can afford these devices. So some learners cannot afford it, or they can use some devices that are not quality ones. And then the last one is called the big data. When we talk about big data, large amounts of data set generated that can be reviewed or analyzed to get some trends. There are certain large data that are available that you can use to analyze so that you can make predictions. We call them big data. Now they are used for analytics, predicting trends, and improving services. So even companies can use that, even Pick and Pay. They can gather this large data set, how people come to their shops and then buy items, so that they can gather and give you points and say, okay, you are a very good customer, so hence we are giving you this amount to reward you because you have been getting or purchasing from us. And they can only do that by gathering this large data set so that they can predict and analyze them. We call them big data. Then the concerns or the disadvantages of big data are privacy and how data is collected and used as well. Then we go to cryptocurrency and then the normal currency. Remember, it's part of grade 11 concept for term 2. Cryptocurrency is digital currency. We call it digital currency. That's the definition. Example is Bitcoin. And it's always decentralized, In other words, no government has a control over it. Anonymous transactions and high volatile. The prices keeps on changing. Like right now, you can get Bitcoin of more than 1 million, right? Physical, that's the normal currency, which is controlled by the banks as well. Then the blockchain. Blockchain is a digital ledger that records transactions across many computers. And cryptocurrency use blockchains. They use blockchains as well. And then we have the supply chain and then the voting system. In advanced countries, they use this digital ledger whereby it will record your votes. As you vote, then it will just do them automatically. They use blockchains. Right. Now, let me check the questions before I proceed. This part here is not necessary. It's not necessary. It's for the next step. But then the social implications up to this part is enough, including green computing and others. Now, information management, which is PET. There's always PET questions, which you must know the task definition. That is phase 1. So I believe if any question will come from the information management should be phase 1, because grade 11s have done only phase 1. They just started phase 1. But don't forget, you did PET also in grade 10. So meaning you have a bit knowledge about the phase 1 concept. Task definition, which is the first step in information management, defining what is the main topic, what questions needs to be answered, and then the purpose of the task. So if I ask you what should be included in the task definition, these are the things that the question demands from you. Now, data and information gathering, which is phase 2, whereby we have primary source of data and secondary sources. So the primary sources whereby you get it through interviews and surveys by using questionnaire. And then the secondary source is whereby you get from books, website, and articles. Then quality of information. How do we evaluate this information from phase 1? Accurate, relevant, up to date, not biased, and other. That's the one I've talked about earlier. Now, authority, currency, objectivity. These are some of the qualities that you'll be looking out for. Then the electronic form or online, their advantages and disadvantages. Don't forget, spreadsheet for analysis of data is also included in PET. Closed question versus open-ended question. The closed-ended questions are the one that involves yes and no, and then the open-ended is the one that gives more opinion. You must take note of that. Plagiarism in the PET, and then the report structure as well. You must know that. Now, the solution development, which is normally question 8. For question 8, mostly 15 marks. That is all about practicals. So questions can come from database, spreadsheet, Microsoft Word. I don't think there will be questions on HTML because the time you did, but then you never know depending on your province. So you must watch out for that. For database, like validation rule, input mask, field size and format, and spreadsheet functions in grade 11. Like sum if, count if, conditional formatting, chart, and others, as well as Microsoft Word layout and formatting, forms, and others. They can ask questions based on these. Now, that is the other part. Then, there are also new technologies that you must know regarding grade 11. I've already talked about some of them, which is IoT, Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies. Those are the new technology that you must know regarding grade 11. Other than that, you must go through this. We talk about multi-touch screen, HDMI, 3D printing, standard for wireless communication like 802.11, which shows Wi-Fi connectivity, NFC, near field communication, which allows devices to connect wirelessly by touching them together. The one like tap to pay, the one we use at tap to pay is part of NFC, right? And then the video communication like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and others, URL shortener. It shortens or converts the long URL into a shorter one. IoT, we discuss it. Wearable devices, we are done. And then geotagging, clickjacking, BYOD, we did that. So basically, if you want to get more notes about the new terminologies for grade 11, these are some of the concepts you must know as well. They will add it to either question 4, 9, or question 10. So take note of that. Right. So this is all about your scope and then the notes as well, what you are expected to know. So let me check if there are some other questions that I can address as well. Will you be able to edit the notes? Yes, I will do that now because I've made the changes. I'm going to publish this one right now together with the video. Yes, yes. Can scan speed also be, that's the instead of the pages per minute, yes, it can also be per second as well. Right. So when you are scanning also the speed, the number of pages that you can scan within a minute. All right. Now the common mistakes. Let's do that one, then we end our lesson. The common mistake that learners always make is the definitions. Please, definitions. I shared this with you. You can check that link. I shared it. What you must do, not leave spaces. The multiple choice, don't leave spaces. And also the true or false. If it false, make sure you correct it by putting the true answer. Again, when they ask you to define something, let's say define the term virus. Now, when you are defining virus, you say the first keyword is what category do we find virus? Virus is what? A malware. So that's the first keyword. So you need to categorize it. It's a malware. And what does it do? Then you state their function. Or they use a malware that disrupts the normal function of a computer. So this when you are marking, if it's 2 marks, the first tick is here, the malware, followed by what it does. Similarly, like what is the phishing? Phishing is social engineering that deceives someone into getting sensitive information through email. So you must first categorize, does it belong to software or hardware or network or what? That's the first keyword. You do not just go straight to mention the function of it without talking about the category that it belongs. Otherwise, you lose the mark. Sometimes you can even lose the entire mark because the question didn't ask you to state the function. And that's the kind of mistakes learners make in theory. That's why they don't get more marks. And then again, whenever they are answering theory, like the advantages, they always try to learn maybe all the advantages, then they forget others. So like I said, when you know each term, the definition, at least 2 or 3 advantages or 2 or 3 disadvantages, then you are sorted. And then try to identify the keywords. During the examination, you can expand it and write them also with your own words together with the keywords as well. Please take note of that so that you don't lose marks in theory. And then for the practical, remember, you must be able to explain, think like the way you do it practically, when you are doing paper one, so that you apply it there as well. Take note of the spreadsheet, the different errors that you might encounter, like hashtag and others. They can ask you some of these questions, and then you must apply them as well. That is the tips you must know, because I shared this one with you already. The tips for answering the theory. I already shared that document with you. So take note. Multiple choice, the question for system technologies, network, and others. And then the integrated scenario. Then I said here, stick to the scenario. Always try to relate your answer to the scenario provided. If you are not sure, still answer based on your knowledge. Read carefully. Read each question to the end, twice if needed, to avoid missing key instructions. Never leave a blank questions, especially true or false. Follow the paper's order. Answer questions in the order that appears. This will help you to avoid missing any. You will find some learners missing one key question, like question 7. So take note of that. If a question has two parts, like name and explain, you must answer both to get a full mark. So you must first name it and then you explain it. Like define and give an example. You must give the definition and then from there you give the example. Use the mark allocation wisely. If it's 1 mark, it needs 1 fact. Yes and no answers do not count without an explanation. So if you say yes, you must be able to explain it if the question is asking that. So take note. Watch for not questions. Questions with not ask for the opposite. Read carefully. Like example, why will the school not install network? In other words, they are talking about the disadvantages of a network. So you have to watch out for the word not. Explain your answers. If you give an advantage or disadvantage, always explain why it is one. Avoid one word answer. One answer means one, so you must take note of that. Avoid vague terms like better, cheaper, and faster. You will never get that mark. Faster to do what? You must explain it. Please, you must support it with a clear explanation. Always give a reason. Add an extra point if you can. All questions, choose one option. Do not write a paragraph for 1 mark. Take note. Don't write a paragraph for 1 mark. Expand where necessary. Words like describe means full explanation, not just keywords. If this is about handwriting, please, handwriting, write neatly. Because if we don't see it, we will struggle to mark it. Assume the marker is not a computer expert. Whenever you are answering theory, think that the person going to mark does not know anything about CAT, and the person is following the memo. So you must try to explain to convince that person. Stay on topic, stick to the question, and relate your answer to the computer or technology only. Ensure your answer match the correct question numbers from the paper. This is very, very important. If you miss it, you might lose the mark as well. All right, so these are the tips. I will share them also with you. Then you can go through them as well. Any question, again, before we end the lesson? All right, if there's no question, thank you for your precious time. Like you saw the question that I shared with you. Don't forget the link that I shared already for the grade 11 papers, that the theory papers. Don't forget to, it's written grade 11 June papers. I shared the link. You will see some of the questions to practice with. So please try to practice them and solve the questions before the exam. They use those previous papers and then the current one that I set also for you. Thank you for your precious time. I will share them again to the group if maybe you forgot about it. And then this video will also be available. You can use the same link and then or I will share the same link again to the group. Thank you for your time. Yes, yes. Wearable device, do they only include the one that track health? No, there are so many of them. There are so many of them. General wearable device like headphones. If it cannot read data, if you have headphone that read data, then it's a wearable device also. All right, goodbye.